Welcome everybody to another screencast. Mr. Belcher here. Our topic today is farmers and the populist movement. Our learning outcomes: you should be able to describe the economic problems farmers are facing in the late 19th century, discuss how farmers tried to combat the rising prices of the railroads, and number 3, summarize the key points of the Populist Party. Life on the prairie in the Central Plains, there are not a lot of trees. These people that are going to settle there are having to build the dugouts, or what is known as a soddy, for their homes out of grass and dirt. John Deere and Cyrus McCormick are going to play vital roles in helping to make it easier to settle. John Deere's steel plow is going to allow the farmers to get rid of that thick layer of prairie grass much more easily than the wood plow, and Cyrus McCormick's reaping machine is going to cut production from 183 minutes to 10 minutes of a bushel of grain. So that's pretty incredible on the level of impact of the cotton gin, for example. The government is also going to finance agricultural education during the 19th century here. The Morrill Act of 1862, which is also known as the Land Grant College Act. These are agricultural colleges, what you would call the A&M colleges today, and the Hatch Act is also going to be passed as well. Here's a picture of a soddy. You can see here there is still some sort of a framework, but for the most part it's built out of dirt, and they have a door, and this house doesn't even look like it has a window. This one here, you can see it has a little bit of window, but it looks a little bit better constructed than the other one. But it's just like cutting up the grass and stacking it like a bunch of bricks and building a house for yourself. So the economic problems that these people are facing post-Civil War is pretty incredible. The new machinery that they bought during the Civil War was very expensive, and the money that they used to buy them is now really not going to be worth anything anymore. Post-Civil War, grain prices are high. That's because we were having to forcibly trade with ourselves and create things for ourselves. Now, with opening up back to the international market, prices are going to fall. By 1887, wheat is about a quarter of what it used to be. In addition, good farmland is very hard to find. These farmers are not educated to the point of knowing what crop rotation is yet. They are simply planting the same crops over and over, hoping that they're going to get the same yield of their crops. Well, unbeknownst to them, they're actually killing their harvest, because every time that they keep planting, they're going to take more nutrients out of the soil, and their harvest is going to be less every year. So that's going to be some major competition with the farmers. Not to mention, like I said before, having to pay the loans back from what they got for their farm equipment. The greenbacks the Civil War currency that they had taken the loans out with are now really not worth anything. It's not even worth the money it's printed on. So they're having to pay back in total more money than they actually borrowed. And with them not being able to make those payments, the banks are going to start to foreclose on their farms. Adding on top of all of this is the railroad and the lack of competition there. These railroad companies are simply having the run of the mill and charging anything and everything for their services. They could charge as much as they wanted to. There's no competition and there's no government regulation. So to ship something from the Dakotas to, say, Minnesota could cost just the same, or if not more, than shipping something from the East Coast back overseas to Europe. So there's some pretty heavy prices that they're going to have to pay, or else they're not going to be able to move their shipments. So it's simply just going to create this cycle of debt for these farmers. It's almost like sharecropping in a sense, where they just can't get out from under themselves. So what can be done here? Oliver Hudson Kelley is going to create something called the Grange. And what the Grange is going to do is educate farmers in a few different ways. Going to teach them about organizing together and creating cooperatives. Organizing together, a group of farmers can get a lot more things accomplished than one farmer itself. One farmer going up against a large railroad company is not going to force any change, but a lot of farmers together could force change. He is also going to sponsor government legislation to start to regulate or try to regulate some of these railroads. He's also going to be part of this greater Farmers Alliance. In total, the membership is going to reach about 4 million, so it's a pretty good small little farmer union, if you want to call it that. And more significantly is it's open to all races. There's about 250,000 Southern blacks that are a part of this Farmers Alliance as well. Now, populism itself, it is also known as the movement of the people, or the People's Party. Their party platform is pretty simple: increase the money supply. If the money supply is increased, more people will have it. They will also want a graduated income tax. People that are richer should get taxed more money. And create a federal loan program to help those people that are struggling, or people who want to start a business to get started. Also, reform government. At this point, we don't have a secret ballot. They want to institute a secret ballot. Right now, if you wanted to go and vote for someone, you had to go and voice your vote out loud, which can lead to a lot of corruption. And also, at this point as well, the election of the senators has been done by the state assembly. It hasn't been elected by the people. So they want to eliminate some of that corruption and allow the people to vote for their senators. The other major thing that they want to try to do is institute an 8-hour workday. This is at a time where people are working 12, 14, 16-hour days. They also want to restrict immigration. We're at a point here in the late 1800s where we're going to have an exponential rise in immigration. And it's interesting to see, when we'll talk about it in a couple of weeks, where if you're from the right country, it's okay. But these immigrants at this point are not from the right countries. So we are trying to restrict their coming to the United States. So by 1892, this Populist Party is going to appeal to a lot of people. 10% of the vote is pretty incredible. And because of this, them getting 10% of the vote, their platform is going to be adopted by the Democratic Party. And you're going to see this quite a bit in the future. So the question is going to be, how do we increase the money supply? Well, one of the things is bimetallism. We're bringing silver in addition to gold into our currency. Because the Panic of 1893, right after that, a presidential election is going to lead us into a depression. We're going to see this throughout our history. It happens. It's the business cycle. So the question is going to be, how do we get out of it? Well, if you were a populist, you also believed in bimetallism, or if you were a silverite, that you can add silver to the gold standard and you could increase the money supply. Maybe you've heard of Fort Knox. That's where we have, at this point, where our country is backed up with all paper money by gold. With adding silver to gold, we're hoping to stimulate the economy. And if you were on the opposite side of that, you were a gold bug and you firmly believed in the gold standard alone, adding no other currency to back up the paper money. It is more stable, but it's also more expensive. So you're pros and cons here. This is going to become an important campaign issue in the next election. Paper money is going to be, some people think it's useless. I mean, think about our money today. Is it even worth the paper it's printed on? I mean, what is the number? What is a $100 bill? It's the same of a $1 bill. It just has 2 extra zeros on it. So take a look at this chart right here. Gold bugs, bankers and businessmen, those more upper class. If you're a gold standard, there is less money in circulation. The loans would be paid in more stable currency and would create deflation, meaning prices are going to fall. On the other side of that, the silverites, they're more of the middle class or lower class, farmers, laborers. They're going to be in favor of more money being in circulation because they expect, with more money in circulation, more people are going to have it. And they will accept the fact that prices may be a little bit higher. So it's going to create a little bit of inflation here, and the value of the money itself is going to go down. So William Jennings Bryan is going to be a major proponent, and he's going to be a presidential candidate, and keep his name in the back of your head here. Take a look at this picture. He's kind of being depicted as a Jesus-like figure. He's going to give, at the Democratic Convention 1896, what's going to be known as the Cross of Gold speech. And you can see in this picture, he's got the Cross of Gold with price tags on it, and also he's got a crown of thorns. And just take a second, to me he kind of looks like he's being depicted like a Jesus-like figure here with this crown of thorns. So having behind us the producing masses of this nation and of the world, supported by the commercial interest, the laboring interest, and the toilers everywhere, we will answer their demand for the gold standard by saying to them, you shall not press down upon the brow of labor this crown of thorns. You shall not crucify mankind upon a cross of gold. So what they're saying is the common man is important here. So he's going to be a very viable presidential candidate in 1896. So with that election, the Republican candidate, William McKinley, is all about the gold standard. The Democrats are going to nominate William Jennings Bryan, and again, the Democratic Party is going to adopt the populist platform for the most part. So they want to combine silver and gold standard. However, once William Jennings Bryan is going to attend the populist convention, there's going to be a breakdown. They're not going to like the Democratic vice presidential candidate, so they're going to elect their own, or nominate their own, rather. So leading to that, there's going to be a double nomination, which it's going to lead to a split in the Democratic and populist parties. And when you have a split like that, it's going to lead to their downfall. William Jennings Bryan had to campaign so much more than McKinley. Bryan was giving some 20 speeches in 27 different states, sometimes 20 a day. It all depended on the state that he was in. So William McKinley was just simply there, and he could campaign off the back porch, really. It's kind of what the saying was at the time. So William McKinley is going to be elected in 1896, and it's going to lead to the collapse of populism. But the interesting thing about populism itself, the movement, it doesn't last very long, but its legacy is what is important. The legacy of populism is that the lower class people can organize together and have an impact politically. Prior to this, a lot of these lower class people felt like they couldn't make a difference. Their vote really didn't count. Their agenda is really what is important as well here. The later reforms that are going to occur in the next about 20 plus years are what is really going to be the legacy of populism itself. We're going to see the secret balloting that gets instituted in 1892. It's also known as the Australian ballot, where we're not going to have that voicing of our own ballot, so we're going to stop a little corruption there. In 1913, we're going to have the direct election of senators. Now the people are going to vote. We're getting rid of that patronage system. And by 1916, certain industries are going to have an 8-hour work day. We're not going to see an 8-hour standard work day until 1937, but they're moving towards these later reforms, which is really going to be the standing out point of populism. So let's recap really quickly. You should be able to describe the economic problems farmers are facing in the late 19th century, discuss how farmers tried to combat the rising prices of the railroads, and summarize the key points of the Populist Party, and think about their impact that they had. So that's all I got for today. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, shoot me an email, let me know, and I will see you next time. Thanks.